I'm Stephanie Holmes. I'm the travel editor for The Herald, and people seem to think that I'm some kind of expert when it comes to travel, and in a lot of ways, obviously I am, but also I've made some really stupid mistakes over the years, and I wanted to kind of make everyone feel a bit better about the silly things that they do when they're traveling. So we're going to share a few of our mistakes. I'm with my lovely travel team, Anna Sargent and Sarah Pollock. So guys, this is my confession. I was in Long Island, New York, and arrived at this amazing hotel, right? It's so beautiful. It's like this castle, very fancy. We were already feeling a little bit out of place because we were all disheveled and we've been traveling for hours, and the staff were really snooty. They were kind of looking at us like we shouldn't be there. So I was all, whatever, don't they even know who I am? And then I realised that I didn't have my passport with me. Left it in the safe in the hotel that was about 100 kilometres down the road, and we weren't going back that way. So, and I was also supposed to be flying back to New Zealand in 2 days. So we had to go back. So it was about a 2-3 hour drive to go back to get my passport that I'd left in the safe. It all worked out in the end. I got my passport back.
Like, at least you probably have learned from that mistake, which I haven't, because being an expat, I have gone through like sponsorship, residency, next residency, and recently, well, in the last year, got a citizenship. I've already lost residency once on a previous trip. Are
you? Is this a criminal conviction you're about to admit to?
Chucked out because of this. No, I travelled out of the travel restrictions, which is it's printed on the passport when you get the sticker, but I don't.
Who reads those things?
I get excited about having the residency.
Me
Me and my partner and our son, who's 1, we went to Fiji, as you know. And then on the way back, we tried to check in at Fiji airport to obviously fly back to Auckland. And she's like, no.
What do you mean, no?
This just isn't allowing me to print off a boarding pass. Please go and take a seat. So we sit down like, And I was thinking, we might get to spend a little bit more time in Fiji, so I wonder what's wrong. And then a man from immigration comes over, he's a Kiwi, obviously working in Fiji, but comes over and he's like, I can see that you both, me and my partner, are citizens, but did you ever get it validated? Did you send your passports off when you got given the citizenship? And me and Mark, we're both obviously British, went straight into the sort of blagging it mode. We were like, we definitely we didn't even look at each other. We were just like, we definitely did that. Your mistake, clearly. And then he goes, he's like, okay, because he's Kiwi, he's lovely. He's like, okay, I'll just go and double check. So, validated. He's like, you didn't. You didn't get it validated. And so he's like, I sent you a link to your email about how I'll let you in. It's clearly, you're obviously citizens, so we'll let you on the plane, but when you get home, you've got to do this and this and that with your passport. And I didn't like to say, I've done this before with residency.
Have you now validated your passport?
Mark's done his, I'm still.
No, actually. Okay, right. So talking of airports. So I was I've never lived this down with my family, but I was in the States and I'd flown over with a friend, and I was taking my first solo flight from San Francisco airport to Canada. So I was like, okay, well, clearly international terminal. So we go to San Francisco airport, and I was cutting it fine, but traveling around New Zealand, you'd always make it on time. The airports are small, and so it was like I kind of got to the queue. I was queuing up, and I couldn't really see my flight on any of the boards. And I was like, I'll get to the front. And I'm like, hi, I'm flying to this destination in Canada. And they were like, oh yeah, that's in the domestic terminal. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Get it across. You know those people and you watch them at the airport sprinting with their bag? And of course I'm behind this couple. They put their bag on the scales and it's too heavy. And so then they take it off the scales. They unzip. I'm starting to hyperventilate. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is getting way too close. I get to the front of the queue and I'm like, come on, go. And and she does. It was totally like a movie where it's she's like, okay, just a moment, and then just starts typing, and just keeps typing, and I'm just waiting, and then she just looks up at me and she's like, I'm so sorry, and then I just absolutely faint. And I come to, and I'm on the ground, and everyone's like, oh my God, is she okay? And classic Kiwi, I'm like, I'm fine, trying to get up, everyone's stay on the ground. I'm like, oh my God. They grab my passport, and then they're like, oh, let's just book her on the next flight, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just stay on the ground. Like this sort of paramedics are there. They call my parents who are in New Zealand and they just laugh. They're just like, she what? Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Like, you know, everything gets sorted, but then I have like 4 hours I have to wait. I'm sitting there and this security officer, they go on the, what are they called, segways? And he like zooms past. I'm like sitting there. And then he like skirts and like comes back and stops. And he just looks at me. I'm like totally different part of the airport. And he's like, are you the girl from Terminal 3? I was like, yes. And he's like, do you know where your next flight's going to? And I was like, yep. And he's like, okay, good. And just leaves. I was like, but it's like, it's only up from there, you know? Like if that's your first solo flight, then it's like, we've joked that it's like, if I ever need like to waive a bag fee or something, like you just...
Yeah.
Well, obviously you can trust us to tell us all about what you need to do and not to do when you're travelling. So you can find out more of our good stories and our bad stories at nzherald.co.nz/travel. The end.
The end.